Hi guys. Now let's have a look at how we actually work in real live Angular applications. Because so far we have hard-coded the data. You remember the mock of heroes data? But of course, in reality, what we really want, if we recall how the internet works, is based on requests and responses. So since Angular is entirely front-end, we need somehow a way to create these requests for and then send it to the backend server, right? In order to do that, guess what? We just need another module that has out of the box all this functionality for us already built. So we just need to learn the specific methods that allow us to perform these requests, so we can gather the data from the server. And since we already know the observer principle of design pattern, then we're going to combine those modules, those principles, and together with the those principles, we're going to perform our requests, create a request, send the requests to the server, wait for it, and act upon. And well, it's not so hard to do, since we already know that Angular works in a very modular way. Well, before looking into the hero service, where we actually create the main functionality of getting the heroes in our Tour of Heroes application, before that, we're going to look into the app module, which is the origin module, to see where we actually are importing this specific module called HttpClient module. And recalling what a module is, it's just a container of a lot of code. It could be code organized into services, directives, and providing you a lot of functionality to work in your Angular application. So this is the magical modeling in terms of performing the HTTP requests. So once you import it, you already know how to. It's part of the common HTTP Angular code, and of course you need to import it here in the imports array as well of the decoration of this origin module. Here it is. As you can see, our application is growing and growing. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to skip this entire explanation about the these modules, since this has to do only with the design, with the styling of our app and things. This is our application now, and allow me to do things like this nice navigation. This is entirely a third-party module, so you can find many other modules invented by awesome designers, awesome people, or Angular team itself. So that's not. We're gonna skip this. If you feel like installing a third-party package, please go to. Normally there is an official page of that module, or you can use the npm official page as well. npm packages. And here it is. You can just search. Well, but this is the important one, the HttpClient mode. So now we're importing all this functionality we need. And another thing, important to mention, not important to actually know about this, but it is because I do not have a real server set up, so I don't have anywhere in the world to send my requests. The tutorial creates a fake server, and for that to be possible, we need this module, the in-memory web API module, which basically uses kind of a in-memory database, and the data is in here, but that's not relevant for us, because you will have to send your requests to a real server and not a fake server. So this is entirely optional for you to study. Nice to know, new tricks, new things, but outside of our scope. So let's get back to the app module, and yeah, so this should be the focus now. Since the main operations, getting the heroes, for example, are happening in the hero service, as we already know, if we quickly look at the previous old code in this hero service, you remember we were using the reactive X JavaScript library to make use of these methods, for example, the of, and then use the simple hard-coded heroes and transforming through this method into an observable. So that was happening behind the scenes. It was okay up until this point, because we already are going to interact with a real, so to say, real server. So this code is no longer functional. So now what we're gonna do is use, of course, the module that we just imported as the HttpClient from common HTTP. And yeah, this is basically the functionality that we need from that module, HTTP headers. You can think of these as services, classes, code that we need to perform our requests. So HttpClient and HTTP headers, but the one we're using right now is just this one to build our request. So let's have a look. Well, briefly, also mentioning that the catch, error, map, and tag functionality are coming from the ReactiveX JavaScript library. Okay, these are just operators or methods, if you like, that allow me to do nice operations, nice executions of smart code whenever I am about to handle the data. So this is coming from the JavaScript library, and then we would see our focus is on this kind of code, HttpClient. So the first thing we need, the rest is the same. The first thing that we are going to look into this service, hero service, is the first new thing is this one, this new property, and you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it heroes URL, and that's going to be holding the here it is, holding the URL, the web API that we are using. At this point, it's just the API heroes, but normally you get this API based on the web API documentation or the team working on the backend. So this is given to you. So you just ask the guys working on the backend, hey guys, could you please give me the URL of the web API, and they will give to you, and then you can work from there. But this, remember, it looks like this. It's just because we're using the fake server. Now we are just here when we are constructing. Remember, this was a hero service injecting another service that's called service in service, and here we're doing the new thing is injecting another service, which is HttpClient, for us to really work or perform the requests. And then once we have that, by the way, HttpClient, I don't want to type the whole thing, so I just create this property HTTP. But when you see HTTP, what I'm actually mentioning is this class or this service within the HttpClient module. Here, here I have the get heroes. Well, first of all, you remember this was the old code asynchronously using observables, but it just was a transformation of heroes. And now what we're going to do is actually use the create our HTTP request. So what we have here in this line is basically performing a get request. We're basically logging it just for debugging purposes, and here we are returning the actual observable, because every method of the HttpClient is creating an observable. So if you want a detailed documentation, you should look into the API Angular documentation, and for example here the HttpClient class has all these methods, and the one we're using now is creating a get request, and this is the class you're using for creating your requests, performing your requests. So in the get, as you can see, is a URL as an argument, you pass that, and the options. So at least we need the URL as an argument. As you can see, in every single method, what you are returning is an observable. Here for the delete, an observable, getting the data, observable. For all these other methods, you return an observable. Remember that an observable is any set of values. Let's get back to the code. So that's exactly what we're doing here, returning an observable. And another thing to mention here, for example, is the get requests. Here you can see I want to specifically a array of type hero. So the object that I'm expecting here, I purposely set the type of this set. If you don't do that, like in here, it's nothing's going to happen. The application still will return an observable, but of course the default is that it's an untyped set of values in there. So you can basically here do this, and well, now you have explicitly said, hey, give me a typed set of values in here in this observable. So that's the only difference. And once you have the observable, you already know what to do. Subscribe to it to actually execute it and get and react upon whenever the data is emitted. Now, an interesting part of the ReactiveX JavaScript library is that you could actually use, operate, or transform the data emitted by the observable. So in this case, and usually that's a normal operation, that you just look into the value of the source data, and you do some manipulation or transformation of those values. In this case, we look, once you have this return this observable, we can just call this method pipe, which simply allows you to set different operations in a sequence. Here we have the two functions, basically. That's one, the tap function and the catch error function. But this is called, or what it's normally known in the ReactiveX JavaScript library as operators. So the tap operator is basically doing, it says here, is doing the spine or interceptions of each emission on the source observable, in the subject, in other words, and runs the this callback in here. So in this case, basically, it's just for logging purposes, which is good use of the tap operator, just logging and letting the user know that the heroes have been fetched. And the catch operator, the catch error operator, just exactly does it. So catches the error, or you can just allow the application to continue with your own observable if something weird, an error occurred while retrieving the heroes, the list of heroes here. So that's what you see in here. A couple of well-handled errors is just a customized function, and that will return an observable, and that observable will be based on this result parameter over here. So it's going to be empty, but this allows me to just continue with the application as if it was normally executed all the or emitted all the data. But of course, I'm not going to get the data because an error occurred. But here I am just creating an observable, which source of value is going to be an empty observable, of course, but allows me to continue the operation of the application or act upon. And that is basically it. We just look into the application and the list of heroes. When I click here, well, all this list of heroes is now being retrieved from a real server. Of course, we're just faking it, but because we don't have a real server, but we are from the front-end perspective, this is as real as it can get based on the HTTP client functionality. So, well, of course, you know that we can create not only GET requests, but POST requests, depending on the type of request that you actually want to build and perform. If you have forgotten about the verbs, about the REST architecture, I recommend you to look into this dissertation and explaining the REST architecture and how the HTTP works, and the representational state transfer works. So yeah, just to ensure that that knowledge is still there, kind of a refresh. Once you see that, then you can go ahead and look into the type of request you want to build and of course send it to the A server. That's it.